Hello, dear learners. Welcome to week 7. We were talking about climate films and dramas, and we'll continue with what we were discussing last time, the potential and the power of films and drama to send the message of climate change. And it is a very powerful medium, and science can be communicated as well as ethical values. So, and it is something that pulls the audience, something that has a tremendous impact on the audience. We discussed earlier also that books, when they are read, they are only read by a certain section of people who are literate, but dramas and films can be appreciated by a larger number of people who may be illiterate or who may not be very much into books. So it is a very powerful medium. Dramas have the ability to link real world data with compelling stories that can inspire viewers to take action. By supporting climate policies, engaging in sustainable practices, or advocating for climate justice, so viewers can get into these modes of action, and it is real world action. The effect of dramas is very strong. It shows that the effects of climate change are not distant possibilities but real issues that are unfolding now, affecting people across the world. So to read about something or to see it in a film or to see it enacted is a different thing, because it is staged right in front of you. Action is really going on, it's living, and it is able to communicate the reality of the issues. It can communicate the now of the events, and thus the impact can create climate activism. It can inspire viewers to take action, to formulate climate policies, climate groups, and NGOs, and it may inspire readers, or watchers, or audiences to engage in sustainable practices. They may become conscious of their ignorance about certain things, and they might try to rectify their attitudes about certain things. They may learn about climate justice. So they learn upfront what climate change is and the realities of climate change, and they learn that it is happening presently in the now, and the urgency of the call reaches them. Climate change is sometimes used as a character which is driving the story. It is elevated to the level of a character. It shapes the plot. It influences the behavior of human characters and drives the tension in the narrative. So climate change can be so crucial in a drama that climate change itself becomes personified as a living being, as it actually is, and it drives the action. It is centered in the plot. It is influencing part on the characters. So from being a mere backdrop, environment comes center stage, and that is actually the aim of climate fiction, climate writing, climate theatre, to undo the static nature of the Anthropocene. So environment takes on a life of its own, highlighting the imbalance between humanity and the natural world. And the imbalance between humanity and the natural world is brought out, and solutions are sought, and the audience is urged to answer questions for themselves and to look for solutions. The audience realize what their own environment is, what their own cultures are, what they are expected to do. So it awakens the audience to reality of their lives and their surroundings. So climate change can be a character also. The role of the environment in the story. So as said earlier, the environment, the natural background is not the background only, it is not the only the backdrop. It is the very force that sets the entire plot in motion. This kind of idea has been taken up in The Great Derangement by Amitav Ghosh, in which he says that climate and environment is a powerful living force, and it drives many things in our lives. It is the source of our existence. So emulating this on the stage makes it very powerful and real. So in this story, Snowpiercer, there is for example, there is a attempt to reverse global warming, which leads to a frozen dystopian future where the earth is covered in ice and humanity's survival is limited to a perpetually moving train. So the environment, its harsh, uninhabitable state forces characters into extreme social and political conflicts. So environment can be a driving force in a story, and it can be a dynamic entity that directly influences the actions of the characters. And in the case of this movie, or in the case of similar dramas, here there is a rapid onset of the ice age which forces governments to act. Characters make desperate decisions, societies try to rethink their priorities. So the idea in the film can also be there in the in plays. So we already know that climate threats have an emotional and psychological impact. And in one of the lessons on climate activism, I have discussed these psychological impacts on youth. Treating climate change as a character allows drama to explore human emotions in response to environmental disaster. So we know that disaster, with all its consequences, can have a variety of impacts on the people or the victims who are affected. There can be psychological impacts, there can be emotional impacts, ranging from loss, grief, regret, trauma. So depression, there are so many outcomes, and we can even notice just a little change of climate can impact our mood so much. Compare a sunny day with a few days of rain where the weather is very cloudy. So we tend to see that everything around is very gloomy. We feel very gloomy. And when the sun starts shining, we feel very cheerful. So climate has a direct impact, and drama is able to do that very well. The unpredictability of the environment can mirror the unpredictability of human relationships. Characters are often portrayed in conflict not only with one another but with the powerful force of nature itself. So these kind of drama which talks about emotional and psychological impact does not limit the psychological impact to the effects of loss or flooding or extreme climate events, but the impact reaches out in society. So it affects the relationships between people. and it also affects the relationship between people and the environment. So there is a disbalance. Human beings have already created a disbalance, and once there are floods and extreme uh, climate events, the relationship between man and nature gets further disturbed. It's a kind of understanding or a kind of insecurity that develops, that nature is an unruly force. Um, it is out to destroy human beings. It is unforgiving. But the converse is also true. Aren't human beings unforgiving? Aren't humans out there uh, bent on destroying nature? So it's like a vicious circle that has started with human beings trying to be agents of climate changes. There are certain films that talk about environmental degradation. Films like Interstellar also explore this dynamic where a climate ravaged Earth forces humanity to seek survival in space. So, I did mention this earlier in the early science fiction books. There have been many stories in which the Earth is broken and ruined beyond repair, and humanity is fleeing to other planets, seeking survival on other planets in space. So, in this narrative, the environment's degradation directly influences personals, characters' personal decisions. Whatever decisions the characters make, they are forced by the climate situation, by the urgency of the climate, even forcing them to confront their own mortality and ethical choices about the future of humanity. So there are many areas that are touched upon where, when we talk about the psychological and the emotional effects on human beings when climate events, especially the extreme climate events, take place. So they are forced to confront their own mortality. They are forced to review their own actions, review their own life. They are forced to review the world around them, and they have to decide what choices to make about the life that is left for them. They have to decide about what is ethical and what is not for the future of humanity. By personifying climate change as an active force, these dramas tap into the classic conflict of human versus nature. This struggle highlights humanity's exploitation of natural resources. So, this is another theme that is there in climate dramas, this conflict between humans and nature, the attempt of humans to conquer nature, to try and exploit its natural resources with the belief that that is what the earth is for, to supply us with all the resources and the needs. It also paints a grim picture of how difficult it is for humans to reverse or mitigate environmental damage once the process has begun, emphasizing the need for immediate action. So, that idea of human versus nature is very strong as a theme in some dramas. The struggle is highlighted, and the journey of human beings to attempt to reverse this becomes very difficult. It seems almost impossible. In the Mad Max films, there is a resource depletion, there is a destroyed and ruined earth, and there is humanity trying to survive, uh, looking for food and water, and then it is faced by powers that try to control those resources, and then they fight back and they try to reverse things, and they try to uh, create a more ethical and just system. But it is a grim picture, because the point that they have reached, which is shown in the film, it seems a point of no return. When human beings have reached the point of becoming lawless, like savages, where might is right, then it is very difficult to go back into an ethical society, to go back into a once prosperous world in which human beings lived in harmony with nature. And moreover, in these scenarios, there is hardly anything that one could call nature, and we only see in films like Mad Max endless desert, people struggling for water and for survival. So these ideas or themes related to humans struggling against nature, they are an important point in some dramas, and they also show an attempt on the part of humanity to get back on track, to bring balance. But it's very difficult to undo the process of degradation of their lives, of their civilization, of the world, of the earth. So it's like a ball that has been set rolling, and but the message is loud and clear that there is a need for immediate action. Moral dilemmas and ethics are raised, and many of these climate dramas, they make you question yourself, make you feel accountable for what is happening. And they are not just about survival in a changing world, they are about the moral and ethical decisions that individuals, corporations, and governments must make in response to climate crisis. So once people watch such films or such dramas, one is forced to confront the causes of climate change. What are the required moral and ethical decisions that will undo this threat of climate change? And it raises questions. They try to look for answers, that who is responsible? Are individuals responsible, or corporations, or governments? Who is responsible? Who should take responsibility? And how will they survive in such a state? Who is going to answer all these questions and try to take responsibility for all the damage? So these works are about questioning moral issues, about accountability, and about taking responsibility. The ethics of resource exploitation, highlighting the tensions between corporate interest, environmental preservation, and personal duty. So, in these dramas, when one looks at the story of man in conflict with nature, and nature that is ruined, and earth that is ruined, then questions arise as to how it can be undone, and who should take responsibility. And if people are to take responsibility, should not they go deeper into the issues, to think that the people that they elect for their government, they should be the right people, who will support sustainability, who will support their future, who will help them undo the injustices based on climate events created by human beings. So these climate dramas are important because they make us think and reflect on what ethical decisions can be taken with regard to the future of the earth and the common future of humanity. Businesses, corporations, and the capitalist world is greatly responsible for a lot of the climate effects, for the climate threat that is looming so large today. And many philosophers have talked about capitalism, which has been um, with humanity since ages, and it is capitalism that has formulated certain terms and which has segregated nature and human beings. Human beings are superior. Human beings are the ones who must use nature to their benefit. Human beings are the privileged ones, whereas nature has supposed to be pulling a blank. So writers like Dipesh Chakravarti, they talk about this absence of nature from discourse when one talks about progress, about industrialization, and these are all the makings of the corporate and the business worlds, the capitalist worlds. So, and that is responsible for a lot of exploitation, and the worst scenarios of climate change, when it began, they started post industrial revolution. So it is these large corporations that worsen environmental degradation. In fact, it is this very element, this capitalism, that has started this whole event of industrialization, inequality in society, and poverty, and the difference between nature and human beings. Human history is considered to only take into consideration humans, but actually history is something very vast. It belongs to the earth, and earth time is very vast according to Dipesh Chakravarti. So here comes the idea of corporate responsibility and the lack of responsibility and the exploitation of resources. So films like The Lorax, 212, though animated, touch on serious themes of corporate greed and deforestation. And then in Dark Waters, 2019, legal drama based on true events. A corporate lawyer takes on a chemical company responsible for polluting a company's water supply. So here again, dramas can be categorized as historical or legal or political, and they deal with some important climate issue. And this drama, it's based on some legal concerns about how a corporate lawyer decides to defend his community's water supply from a exploitative chemical company. So we can see that climate drama has many themes centering around the impacts of climate change. And as we saw earlier, drama is a very powerful tool to deal with climate issues. What are the ethical questions that are raised by climate drama? They are the sense of accountability, the sense of responsibility that should be taken by those who exploit the environment. And that really happens. The sufferers are the poorest people, and the ones who benefit are the richest, the industrialist, and they do not question ethics. So it is impending, it is important that they consider the ethical question of the survival of humanity and take accountability for what they have done. And audiences become informed of the role of big businesses in environmental disasters. So this chain of environmental disaster that comes from big businesses is an ongoing feature not controlled in any country anywhere. It's very difficult to control because it is a chain, and it's like public opinion. When people are unaware of these uh, chains, or they are unaware of who is causing the problem, then they do not take action. But once they become aware, then they would know that the food that they eat, the articles that are provided to them with maximum comfort and ease, they're delivered through couriers and parcel post. All these things, when one starts to think of them, we know that these are corporate worlds behind all this. And we know that there's an exploitation of labor as well as exploitation of environment when all this is going on for the sake of comfort. So, when we try to compare a ordinary fruit seller who's standing out in the sun and trying to sell his fruit, and then we think about the big department store out there which may be having a brand name, and they are selling the same fruit at a slightly lower price, plus there's a plush environment, and it is a wonderful place. So one can compare that this is what industrialism is about, that all the work from the fields, the produce of the fields that this man is trying to sell, that is being undermined. And industrialism, commercialism, and the corporate world takes over, and nobody wants to buy his things, his hard-earned, hard-grown vegetables, because there are different chains that are functioning. So once audiences become aware of these chains of connection in a capitalist world, in a business world, and they try to raise ethical questions by watching these dramas, there is surely going to be some impact on lessening the carbon footprint and lessening the effects of climate change. And we already know the consequences of unchecked capitalism. So far in the last 2000 years or so, we can see what the consequences have led us to, though we may be boasting of traveling to other planets, or we may be boasting of aeroplanes that man only dreamt of, or such innovations, but actually hasn't the environment also been ruined in such a manner that could not be thought of? And sadly enough, the stage of global warming that we have reached, the stage of climate change that we have reached, has been asserted by experts that this was the same stage when the dinosaurs were destroyed and the age was changed into another age. So it was an end of an age. So there are frightening consequences to unchecked capitalism, and to check it, public awareness is important, and public awareness can come through films and drama, because they are watched a lot. They are things that are very popular as a mode of entertainment. There are ideas of personal accountability and sacrifice. In films like First Reform 2017, the protagonist, a pastor, grapples with existentialist and moral dilemmas about climate change, despair, and the role of humanity. So let us stop here. We will meet again in the next lesson. I hope I was able to convey to you how powerful a medium drama and television and films can be to fight climate change.